Is it a Lunar New Year or a Chinese New Year? Why do people get so upset about it? Hello everybody, my name is Toby. As you can see, I'm in China. Today, I want to talk about the New Year here in China. It's upon us, and you can see there are not many people on the street. Why? Because a lot of people have already gone to their hometowns to celebrate with family, as they should. But today I want to talk about the terms, the names we use for this, because I've seen in videos really around the world, both here in domestic social media and in social media internationally, a lot of people talking about it. So what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about what is the name for this festival approaching us here in China. Is it a Chinese New Year or is it a Lunar New Year? Now, I've done a bit of research. This is what I've come up with. So basically, if it were a Lunar New Year, then the exact date would drift through the seasons. But it's not a purely Lunar New Year. In fact, you can describe this Chinese New Year as a lunar solar calendar. It's really quite complicated. Well, I think it's complicated. But the people in Nanjing, who have a lot to do with deciding the dates of this new year, well, they know their stuff. So, to explain, if it were a purely lunar calendar, if it was correct to say a Lunar New Year, then the exact dates would drift throughout the year. So for example, for Muslims who celebrate, or who don't eat during Ramadan, I should say, do you celebrate not eating? Perhaps you do. That drifts throughout the year. So it can be at different times of the year. Chinese New Year, and that's the phrase I'm going to start using now, although I have used it in the past. This is annoying here in China. There's always noise in China. This is one of the things I hate about China. I mean, I love China, but this I hate. 这声音好大啊，师傅。这是一种污染，真的。谢谢，真是污染，可以关一下。啊，我晓得哈。So that's me complaining. I should say I love being in China. It's just one of the things I dislike is that noise pollution. And it annoys me, not just making videos, just in life. Anyway, back to the point. So, from now on, and I think for the most part I'm going to call it Chinese New Year, although I perhaps in the past have occasionally called it Lunar New Year. But now, I know better. Stop wagging my finger, that's dangerous. Start wagging your finger. Alright, why is it called Chinese New Year? As I've already explained, if it were a purely Lunar New Year, then the date would drift throughout the year in different seasons. A bit like Ramadan. That changes, the dates of Ramadan change throughout the year. But the dates for Chinese New Year do not change. It's always in January or February. Why? Because it's always the second new moon after the winter solstice. Found that out recently, and now you know as well. So it's always in January and February. So to call it a Lunar New Year is just incorrect. We know that, and we now know that. I know that, and you know that. Now, let's talk about the second part of this, which is a bit more sensitive and a bit more controversial. Why, if people know that it's not a lunar calendar, it's not a pure lunar calendar, would they call it a Lunar New Year? Well, here's where it gets a bit more sensitive, a bit more controversial. Some people think it's about cultural inclusion. Because, of course, this New Year is also celebrated in Korea and in Vietnam and Malaysia, Singapore, and the diaspora, the Chinese diaspora, around the world. So if you remove the word Chinese, does it become more inclusive? Perhaps you can let me know in the comments below. Is it more inclusive by not calling it Chinese? In calling it Chinese, are we alienating people in Korea, in Vietnam, and people around the world who may not be Chinese but also celebrate this holiday? Again, let me know in the comments below. From that point of view, you can all sort of understand it. I mean, now we know it's incorrect. It's not a purely lunar calendar. It's incorrect. But from that point of view, you can sort of understand it, where they're coming from. But there is another point of view, and it's got to do with perhaps what we've seen over the last 20 years, and I think it's been highlighted over the last 5 years by people on social media with a lot more followers than I have. But there's sort of what you would call pro-Chinese people. And they've come up because there's been a lot of anti-Chinese feeling for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I believe that's part of sort of containment of China. And you can talk about that in terms of the economy, you can talk about that in terms of the military, but soft power containment is also a real thing. I really believe that. Whether it comes down to removing the word Chinese when talking about a new year, That I'm not sure about. But there are some people who are particularly sensitive to it and think that by removing the word Chinese, it's just cultural erasure or cultural appropriation. What is formerly Chinese now becomes Korean, now becomes Vietnamese, now becomes something for everyone. So I think there's an argument to be said there. I personally, from now on, will always call it Chinese New Year. It originated here in China to do with, of course, with the sort of agricultural calendar, the imperial calendar. The exact timing is decided here in China. I've already talked about the Purple Mountain in Nanjing and the observatory there. Oh, they play a part of it, although I'm sure Beijing also plays a part. So for me, it is a Chinese holiday and a Chinese festival, and it is Chinese New Year wherever you celebrate it. And I think use the word Lunar New Year because you don't know, but I think that's fine. But once you do know it's not a purely Lunar New Year, then I think not using the word Chinese New Year, perhaps you have other motives. Now, let's talk about Chinese New Year because it's a wonderful, wonderful festival. And I'm here in China, as you can see, although I've gone somewhere without many people on purpose so I could talk to you guys. Now, as you already know, China is a huge country, but the whole country celebrates Chinese New Year. And as you know of the economy of China, lots of people work away from their hometowns. But for Chinese New Year, it's very important to be with family and friends. So you'll see the biggest migration in the entire world, and it happens every year between January and February. It can be on trains, it can be on planes, and it can also be highways. People literally driving home, not for Christmas, but driving home for Chinese New Year. And you'll notice this as well. During the period for Chinese New Year, the highway tolls are got rid of. So people normally, when you drive your car in China on the motorways or on the highways, have to pay the highway toll. But during Chinese New Year, those are cancelled and everybody can drive for free, although you have to pay for your petrol, although for many people in China these days, pay for electricity for your electric car. Now, who decides the holiday dates for Chinese New Year? Well, as I've already said, it's basically the government and it's the Purple Mountain Nanjing Observatory. But the exact dates for the holidays are decided by the government. Now, why is that important? You see, here in China, most people, most companies, or danwei as you say in Chinese, follow government mandated holidays. Now this year, it's a really, really long holiday. It's 9 days. You can see I know how to say numbers with my hands in China. I can make a separate video on that. So it's a 9-day holiday here in China, which is longer than normal, by the way. But we're taken right up to basically New Year's Eve until we're allowed to go on holiday. So what does that mean? So that means for all the civil servants and for most companies, they will work right up to the holiday and then they'll get 9 days off before they have to go back to work. Now, private companies can decide when they take holiday days. They can decide to have their holiday days before the government mandated holidays, and they can even decide to have people working during government mandated holidays. However, if you do so, you're going to be paying your workers 3 times their day rate. 3 times their day rate. So for restaurants, for hotels that will traditionally be busy during the holidays and that still need staff, they're getting paid 3 times their day rate. Now, let's talk about the cultural elements of Chinese New Year. As I've said, China is a huge country. You already know that. So the way people celebrate is always slightly different. First of all, everybody goes home to their hometown. So for most of the year, you'll see people in the big cities, but during Chinese New Year, you'll see people go to their smaller towns, in the villages and the countryside. And in fact, that's a wonderful time to be in the countryside of China because it's incredibly lively and full of people. But what people eat differs slightly. So in northern China, jiaozi or dumplings are very, very popular. Both the making of dumplings and the eating of dumplings are associated with northern China. In southern China, it's a bit more varied, perhaps because the food in southern China is better. Oh, no, controversial video this time. I'm going to people from northern China say that's awful, but I think most people agree with that. So northern China tends to eat dumplings. Southern China, a bit different, perhaps rice cakes or other things. Now, tangyuan, the glutinous rice, lovely sweet treat, is also eaten, but that's during the period of the Chinese New Year. So whereas there may be some differences in the food people eat, there are things that are across the whole of China. So obviously the migration, the biggest migration in the world, traveling basically from where you work or live most of the time to your hometown to be with your parents and other relatives. That's the first thing. Fireworks, incredibly important to Chinese New Year, especially firecrackers, and welcoming the god of wealth, which is normally on the 5th day of Chinese New Year. Although recently, in the last few years, we've seen a crackdown on fireworks, especially in the big cities. Basically, environmentally friendly China has decided that fireworks, although traditional, are bad for the environment. And I can understand that. Plus, when I first arrived here in China many years ago, it was literally a free-for-all. People would set them off anywhere, anytime. You could have fireworks literally sort of go against your window. Like 20 stories up, fireworks could hit your window. So perhaps it's a good thing that there are less fireworks in the major cities now. Of course, red packets or hongbao are really important. So here in China, we don't really have a tradition of giving each other presents on holidays or even birthdays, but certainly Chinese New Year, it's all about red envelopes. So the people that do the best are the young people, the children. They'll get red envelopes, red packets, hongbao from relatives, from parents, from grandparents, and so it's a time for Chinese children to get a lot of money. People who do the worst out of Chinese New Year are people like me, my age, middle-aged people, because you not only give hongbao red envelopes to younger children, but you often give red envelopes to older people. You know, your sanbei, your parents, your parents-in-law, your grandparents. So we're sort of stuck in the middle, just giving out money, literally giving out envelopes of money to people. But that's okay. And of course, you have the biggest TV show, the most watched TV show in the world always, which is the Spring Festival Gala. Now, there's an idea now that less people are watching it. So 20, 30 years ago, when there were less TV channels, when there were less TV shows, more people would watch it. And that's sort of true. But still, most Chinese people will watch the Spring Festival Gala either live in the evening or the next day. But what's changed is everyone used to sit around the TV and watch it. Nowadays, a lot of people are watching on TV, on their phones, on their laptops, on their iPads, and so on. So that's the change. Now, let's talk about the economy of China during Spring Festival, Chinese New Year. It's changed slightly. It's got better as China's become more international and is doing this sort of international trade. But pretty much for a week, every year, China's economy shuts down. Now, does that mean there are no people on the streets buying and selling, no hotels, no restaurants, no people buying things? No, that exists, although for a day or two, even that shuts down. But your big factories, your international trade, that really does slow down. So China, being the world's supplier, being the world's factory, does sort of slow down for a week or so. That's why you'll see a lot of international trade. They'll put in their big orders before Chinese New Year, or things will resume after Chinese New Year. So that is really an introduction to Chinese New Year. You can see behind me there are lots of these red lanterns all around us. And look, I'm very happy to be here. It's a fantastic time of the year. It's basically, for Western people, for people in Britain, it's the Christmas for Chinese people. It's the most important festival in the year. It's when family gets together. It's when you exchange presents, money in China, and you have wonderful food and sort of get away from work. It's a fantastic time of year. And it is Chinese New Year, and I will continue to call it Chinese New Year going forward. I think I always did, but perhaps in the past I unknowingly called it the Lunar New Year, and we now know that is not the case. Oh, and one more thing, the character Fu, which basically means luck or prosperity, is all around the place during Chinese New Year. So you can see here, this is the character Fu. Now, it's often upright, but sometimes it's turned upside down. Why? Because the word Chinese, Dao, meaning to turn upside down, and the word Dao, meaning to arrive, sound very, very similar. So if you want prosperity, if you want luck to arrive or come down on you, then you often turn it upside down. So that is why the character Fu is often turned upside down. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I know I've rambled a bit. I do apologise for that. But hopefully you've understood what I tried to get across. But for me, Toby, here in China, that's a wrap. 谢谢，再见。祝你新年快乐，中国年，中国的新年 Chinese New Year. Wish you all success, happiness, prosperity, health. I hope they gallop into your Year of the Horse. 祝您那个马年大吉，马上成功，马上有钱，一直健康。谢谢，拜拜。So people in Guangdong only get 10 kwai hongbao. Really?
220.
Do you believe that? I don't believe it.
It's real.
Really?
Yes.
Seems like not much. So who gets the most? 谁有最多的？ Sichuan. Dongbei gets the most money.
Yes.
Northeast China gets the biggest hongbao. If anyone from China is watching this, please put in the comments below who gives the biggest hongbao. You think it's Dongbei?
Yes.
Maybe Fujian. Maybe Wenzhou, Zhejiang.
That's the time I can get on.
Sichuan, not bad. How much money do you think you're going to get this year?
Probably
2,000.
2,000?
Yes.
Hopefully not for your parents. All right, Happy New Year. Bye bye. 10块钱. 10块.
20块钱。
Bye bye.